Hey ya, hey yo. Alright, here we are back again, another content session. So, the soul searching experience. What are we doing and where are we going towards? I realized that it makes sense for me to start again with a daily blog form content video and just talking through whatever I'm going through, because that is also therapeutic for me. And yes, we want to take the action, but we also learn how to communicate about the actions that I take. And so obviously it would be best to talk about the soul searching experience, and for that reason we are taking responsibility. Please give me a set of 5 questions, interview questions, like a podcast style, that somebody would want to ask me about my live seminar experience here in Peru. The live seminar is called the Soul Searching Experience, and it is all about decoding human behavior. So what does that mean? That basically means that if you have a type of behavior that you feel you don't want to be doing, but it keeps happening, or you don't know, like you know that you should be doing something, but on the other hand, you don't do it consistently, why that is? Because in the same way as we see, like a bag of salt, we would imagine that as a water balloon, the area where it divulges is not the area where the pressure is being applied. So we want to take a look, that we find out where the pressure is being applied in your life, where is the energetic imbalance, what is not quite right, what is not quite imbalanced in life. And so that can be various different things. It can be that, and this is something that I'm speaking through as we are currently here and going through, that social energy is not quite imbalanced. And I also realized a little unconscious trigger of feeling that I should be reading more, and I feel if I just had a girlfriend I would be more concentrated, so I could actually read some books and I wouldn't just run around with so much pressure inside of me. But on the other hand, that pressure needs to be channeled well, and that is my path. And that is my path and my practice to learning how to do that, how to let it express itself through the voice and through all other expressions of myself, getting back to the gym, getting some good friends of mine that I can train with and lift some weights with whenever I feel a little bit emotionally drained or emotionally down. And so what we're going to be doing here as well is the calendars. First of all, based on everything that I've said, give me 5 questions that I can go off of and make a YouTube episode about. Okay, thank you very much. And so I realized that now it's the time again to just flick on the camera and keep going, keep working, keep recording myself as I'm going forward and learning how to practice, learning how to speak, getting on calls with other people and communicating myself, utilizing my voice, utilizing my thoughts in the right way. The foundation. So here's a question to you, Florian. All right, what inspired you to create the soul-searching experience, and how does it reflect your own journey in understanding human behavior and energy imbalances? Well, this is a very important question. First of all, what inspired me to create the soul-searching experience? It is truly a reflection of my own personal process and my own personal journey, and a manifestation of everything that I've been doing and creating and learning in my lifetime so far. So I have been on this path of inner work, healing work for the last 10 years, right? Is it 10? It is 10. It is 10 years. It is 10 years in June, July. All right, for the last 10 years. And, when I first started out, I always wanted to be a public speaker. I realized that from the very first moment, wherever I set my foot into a live seminar setting, I realized that if I can do that with my life, if I can be a public speaker, if I can be there on stage sharing about how life works and how we work, human psychology and personal development combined in one potent seminar experience, aligned with the Tony Robbins type of work where one person stands up and we're doing the intervention, and then I pull out the learnings for each and everybody else here in the room so that the learnings may relate to each person as they're there in the room. All right. So that was the experience that led me to deciding that this is what I want to be doing in my life. I want to be a seminar leader, a healer, and a teacher. And I realized that back then I wasn't even there. And frankly, currently, I'm also questioning if I'm actually there already. But I'm preparing myself. I'm getting better, bigger, stronger, more worthy every single day. And yeah, the biggest practice of that is obviously the sexual purity. Because as a healer, I can't just go around and get with all these women, can I? So that is not the path of a healer for sure. So that is something that I'm currently going through and working through and putting myself into a position where I found a lot of human connection just through the basic habits that I have for myself and that I've set up for myself in each and every day. Learning to become a healer, a teacher, and a speaker. Now that my AI systems are sufficiently set up, I'm also realizing how my mind drifts always to the next thing. And I've realized how I've trained myself to not stay on one task because I was always giving in, because I was always so distracted, because this sexual frustration has been with me for like years. And so I realized now the answer to that is not giving in. The answer to that is setting myself up with life circumstances that hold me in balance so that it doesn't even lead to frustration, so that the energy is just being utilized by being with people, being with friends, working out with friends, lifting weights, going outside, working from home and from the coffee shops, 5 a.m., flicking on the lamps and the camera, and then just keep going with the content creation. Right? Applying some beard oil so that I may look like a proper man, I guess, right? That's the insecurity behind that. And so, yeah, speaking my dream life into existence without so much condescending, negative, and judgmental thought that sometimes tends to happen and tends to come up still. And so, yes. So what inspired you to create the soul-searching experience? Well, frankly, it was a reflection of my own journey up to this point, where I realized that back then I set my foot in that seminar setting and I realized if I can do that, that's what I want to be doing with my life. But then I looked at my own life and I realized, okay, for me to be a personal development teacher, I probably got to step up my life. And I realized back then, I looked at my life and I was a virgin. I had massive acne on my face. I had all these weird things, these massive insecurities, these thought patterns that just kept coming up and like didn't feel very much in control of my eating. I was just squeezing my fucking pimples like a crazy fucking nut every night for some stress relief, right? Because I held all of that inside of me without ever actually talking to anybody, just isolating myself. And so I'm just now really getting out of that while I'm still feeling and seeing those patterns inside of me that make me prone to just isolating myself and holding it all inside. And I also realize right now it does not necessarily need to mean either or. So like either I fully go and indulge in all of that or I stay abstinent and pure. And so like, yeah, part of me wants to tell my martial arts teacher that, you cut your hair and I cut my hair and I make a vow that I'll stay abstinent until I get married, right? Part of me wants to do that. So cut the hair off again and let it grow back for another 2 years. In 2 years I'm probably ready to be at that level where I can definitely find that quality of a woman that I want. But yeah, currently things are still a little bit in disorder, although we're getting there. But man, sometimes I feel, man, how much fucking easier would that be? If I just didn't have all of this, it makes me less concentrated. Not having a woman in my life makes me currently less concentrated. But I'm going to give it a try, and I'm going to give it a try and see that, with more friends, more social contacts in my life, I can utilize that energy in other ways, and I can find other channels of expression for that energy that makes me grow more and learn to live with this feeling of deprivation inside of me, because it's actually not even the date, it's just like the contact, the energy exchange of just talking to people, of just talking to a woman, right? It's just like this not so much in my head, isolation, just with my clients in front of the computer, like more like actual a social life. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, that's currently what we're working on. That is currently the main thing that I'm integrating into my life. And so, as I am having more and more meetings, I realize that these automations that I'm about to be getting reviewed on Tuesday, which is tremendous, will help me with my client fulfillment. And that is the best that I can do. And I realize that, yes, building my personal brand and all of that is going to be something that this year definitely will be impulsed even more than it was last year, because we are already 1 year into making daily content every day on YouTube, which is tremendous. And I learn and I see how much I've improved. And even if it might be like another 2 years, I cut my hair, I make the vow, and then I will just utilize YouTube as an outlet for all of that, right? And I realized oftentimes here, yeah, I don't even have that much more work to do here currently, apart from just putting everything into my calendar and addressing and like taking calls with that, sending proper follow-up emails after every call, sending them a meeting summary and a action items step, putting all of these action items into the Airtable, my customer relationship management system. And then having some agents with chat interface to be able to access the database. It's really going to be not that crazy hard. And we're going to do that over the next 2 or 3 weeks. So on Tuesday morning, I'm going to take the tech support call on 2 a.m. And we're going to do that. And then we're going to do the later tech support call as well. And we're going to dial in the automations. That's what we're going to do every Tuesday. Working on these automations, step by step, week by week. And just utilizing the automations that are necessary and important for me. But because even the Reddit automation, that's not very important. What I need to build right now is this customer relationship management system, as well as with the WhatsApp API. I mean, I can use Unipile, but like, man, 55 a month, that's pricey. Like, I'd rather have it for free, like, honestly, because, yeah, that's a lot. So, anyways, but yeah, so we're going forward. We can certainly do that and go and express more. And so I've realized that with my positioning, what I'm really all about is live events. So I'm going to dial in all of my tech systems in the coming week. Austin was so kind to buy some of the things off me that he anyways already has. And so we've just exchanged money for that, which is great. This will guide me and lead me over the next weeks. But I've also realized how I go directly back into like fixing my systems and cleaning up. And yes, my mind also goes towards dating, because then after the money is solved, that's like the next biggest pain, or like the next most urgent thing to focus on. And so it's not even that bad. All I would need to do is just have some friendly kind of conversations that would already make me look forward to things and make me keep going. Some dates throughout the week as well. Yeah, just talking to some women. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, yeah, I can do that. I can ask Rodrigo for an introduction there as well. And yeah, we can have some coffee dates while I'm working, while I'm making these transcripts for my clients, the meeting note transcripts after the meeting, send that over. And while I'm doing that, I can just have like a coffee conversation with somebody. And how great would that be? I think that would be tremendously great. And honestly, that would give me something to look forward to in the day. Because yes, I look forward to client meetings and all of that, but yeah, this kind of friendship and especially dating, that would be great. So I'm gonna create that in my life. I am going to create that in my life and get some personal some personal meetings, right? That's what we want to do. So we're like not only, looking at some kind of app, but we're actually having appointments and meetings in person where we're like, hey, would you like to have a coffee conversation? But because I'm like so much in this, but I've been running this pattern for a while now, and it's like it's very immature of like, me being so like negative that I'm not having it, just looking at what I'm not having and just trying to force my work out of the state of deprivation. And the women are just all around me. They're like, for years, they've probably been thinking, man, when is he just gonna fucking talk to me? Is he gonna get out of his way, or is he just like in his head? And I was just in my head. And I probably also didn't want to face the fact that I'm actually not that good verbally that I thought I would be, both in English and in Spanish. Because I always think of myself as this gifted speaker, which I certainly am, but on the other hand, the question is then also, how many hours do I speak every day, right? As a public speaker, I'm speaking every day. And so how many hours am I actually speaking every day? Because that is my bread and butter, is it not? Because I don't eat that shit. But that's my life, blood, water, right? Speaking, the voice, the speech, the words, the communication skills. And so I realized that this is something that I'm very excited about, getting into the routine and the balance of that, when I'm like physically relaxed and refreshed and recharged. That's coming naturally out of me. And so I'm going to commit myself to, whenever I see somebody that I kind of like, just ask for a coffee. And I said, I'm going to bring my laptop and I'm going to work here a little bit. And you can be here and we can talk a little bit on the side. But that's what I'm going to do, and that's kind of my idea of a date, because I'm working all day and I'm making things happen. And you can be here asking me some questions that I may or may not respond. That sounds good. All right. No, man, that sounds very arrogant. But And so it's just the first year. It's all good. And so action taking. Getting the school community up again. It's going to be clarity and accountability, nothing else. That's what we're going to drill. It's going to be clarity and accountability, nothing else. That's what we're going to drill. So this is for people who need constant reminders of like niche down, specialize, one automation, one avatar, one business, and we're going to drill that in a very loving way. So it's going to be accountability and clarity and nothing else outside of that. So with that, welcome to my community. Welcome to the soul-searching experience. Welcome to Clarity for AI Agency Owners. That is my community. So it's going to be $97 month over month, $150 month over month. And you're going to have personal support from me. We're going to have daily personal WhatsApp support if you need my help. So we're going to have daily personal WhatsApp support if you want my help. Am I going to take a job there for 2K? For sure I'm going to do it. For sure, if the community would give me that, for sure I would do that. 100%. Getting paid in order to get leads, 100% am I going to do that. 100%. And so that's really what we're looking into. Going forward with that. Well, I'm just learning how to be self-sufficient and having lots of good personal interactions every day. Right? That was already like a great interaction that I've just had with that girl at the coffee shop. And so next time I'm gonna ask her for a coffee or some juice kind of somewhere else. All right, and then we're just gonna do that and just have friendly conversations. That's what I'm committing myself to. Right? To get out of this victim mindset and out of this constantly hustle and stress. It's like, it's fine. And I'm gonna build these two automations. That's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna have meetings with my clients for clarity and accountability. Then I'm gonna send them a meeting summary and automated WhatsApp reminders. And none of that fancy shit with like some kind of graphics, motivational images, like music, like all of that is not that important. We're just gonna do that, and we're gonna send them WhatsApp reminders as well, some WhatsApp messages with, how are you right now, energetically, and this and that. How are you feeling? How are you feeling every day? What's your mood? What's your energy level? How did your week look like? And all of that. All right. So I just had some thoughts inside of me justifying myself that I haven't built anything successful ever, and so I've got this calendar SaaS where you can basically upload your calendar, and then we can take a look at how did your routine look like and all of that. And so this is where all of this goes to later on. This is like human behavior 2 or 3 years down the road, where I can get some other people into my school community for a seminar offering, right? A live seminar event where we are going to take a look at, okay, how are you living your life? What are your routines? And so even for the first live events, I'm going to do my live events here in Peru, but even for the first events, I come out to your place, right? And I'm going to get an accommodation somewhere close by so that we can meet up every day, even if it's just for 15 or 20 minutes. And we're going to do that for one entire week. And we're going to do that for an entire week, and you walk me through how your life is, and then we're going to take a look at your routines and work on energetic balance as well as some systems for yourself to get and stay organized. Because my automations that I'm doing, they're all just that. So we have meetings, and I'm going to prepare for this meeting with the person. I'm going to prepare for this meeting. And then I'm going to send them a follow-up. And the live events are going to be booked through school, right? Or when I have them on a call, they can pay via PayPal, make the deposit there, pay the other half through school. And that's how we're going to do it. And then we just need more advertising later on with some SEO or whatever things, and get these systems set up so that they just run in the background and bring traffic to the page, meaning eyeballs, meaning people. And that is something very interesting and exciting, and this is something that I'm looking forward to very much. Getting the seminars started. Alright, so let's talk about the seminars currently, because all I'm doing actually, and I'm getting just more and more experience in that and better at that, of like having meetings every day. So I'm having personal meetings, I'm having online meetings, and then I'm having written communication with people. And that's really all I do. Make YouTube videos. That's what I'm doing too. A YouTube vlog. And that's gonna work and that's gonna be enough because people still wanna see vlog style content of how I live my life and how I live and how I train and how I'm living the life of my dreams, having friendly conversations with friends all around and everywhere. Right? That's the kind of lifestyle that people really appreciate. That is the kind of lifestyle that people really appreciate. So all my resources will be on YouTube. I don't need an Instagram. I will just not even do that. We can take some images, but the rest it's not even that important. And so yeah, that's what we're gonna do, like a pancake funnel. And so instead of talking about myself so much, I can be talking about my clients and their pain points and their struggles. So I'm utilizing the calls, the transcripts of the calls that I've had with my clients and making content based on that. But first we're going to read again through the questions, right? And so how does it reflect your own journey on understanding human behavior and energy imbalances? Well, I don't call them energy imbalances, I call them energetic imbalances because they are a balance that comes about through energy. And so what I mean by that is we have all different kinds, we have many different kinds of energies inside of ourselves. There is physical energy, there's mental energy, there's emotional energy, there's creative energy, sexual energy, and spiritual energy. And so when we look at that and we ask ourselves, have I talked about social energy? I don't think so. When we ask ourselves, as I'm realizing that there was one of those kind of, I'm not good enough, fuck, I should end the video, kind of, I don't know what I'm talking about, kind of trigger point just coming inside of my mind. Oh, realizing that, yeah, mental energy, we all know what that is like when we're physically exhausted, we're laying in bed, for example, and our head is still spinning. And our body needs to rest, but our mind is still spinning. We also know the opposite of that, of what it is like when we are physically charged, but mentally exhausted. Maybe after a long day with a lot of meetings where you're like still, you have restless legs, but your mind's exhausted, your mind is tired. Emotional energy is in the same way. You can be emotionally tired, emotionally exhausted, or you can feel emotionally full. You know what that's like sexually, whether you're depleted or whether you're charged. You also see that as creative energy. Some people spend their lives in engaging in a type of work that they feel is less fulfilling to them. And so then they create themselves an outlet on the side for their creative energy. Because all of us, we have the necessity for creative output in our lives. And if we don't find a healthy way to let this energy out, there will invariably be an unhealthy way to let these energies out. So there's mental energy, physical energy, spiritual energy, as I said, creative energy, emotional energy. And so all of these energies want to be in balance because oftentimes when we're talking about emotional energy, which is a concept that it's not so much like mental and physical energy where you have more of it or less of it. Emotional energy is more about the quality of the emotions that you have, but it is there. These emotional energies are fluctuating through you. And so what kind of energy fluctuates through you? Is it going to be envy? Is it happiness, variety, the life that you want, the life of your dreams, right? What is the quality of the emotions that we feel on a day-to-day basis? And that is another point where I'm realizing that just I got to be, or like I am, more responsible for my own emotional states of making myself feel good, knowing that I'm a healer, a teacher, and a seminar leader, and I'm living accordingly. I'm building this life because if I want it, I have to build it. It's not going to be handed to me. I need to build it, right? And I am building it. And so I realized, how would a healer, a teacher, and a seminar leader live, right? You would probably be happy and fulfilled, clean and pure, organized, and serving every day. That's probably what you would expect from somebody as a healer, right? And so that's where we're going with it. More community service. Yes, so that's probably what we're going to be doing. More community service. All right, so the core concept. You talk about decoding human behavior and addressing energetic imbalances. Exactly. Can you explain what that means in practical terms and how somebody might recognize these imbalances in their own lives? This is a very good question. So, when I'm talking about human behavior and decoding human behavior, what we really want to find out is what is the cause of the behavior. Because oftentimes we look at the behavior and we say, I want to change that. And we mean by that the behavior. But oftentimes the behavior that arises is because of something that happens somewhere else in your life. There's another cause that is not the behavior. And so we need to adjust the solution to the behavior towards the cause of the behavior and not the behavior itself. Because one identical behavior that looks identical across two people can have two very different and underlying causes. That means that for some person, X might be the cause, for some person, Y might be the cause. And a more practical example, when we look at somebody who drinks at night or somebody who eats too much late at night, then it can be due to something that I call a release and relief pattern. Meaning it can be due to an energetic release of anger, for example. It could also be that this gives you the permission to then get actually angry at yourself, which then might lead to a feeling of sadness or unworthiness once the anger has run its course. And that might be a purge in itself. So it might be that the energy of sadness is really stuck inside and we are not able to let ourselves feel that. But if it's inside of us, it wants to leave our body, it wants to leave our system. And so then our entire system manufactures and fabricates circumstances so that these emotions arise and are being felt. And when the only way where we can do that is basically total defeat, then it can be that we're manifesting circumstances that make us be in the state of defeat so that we feel the underlying sadness that is connected to that defeat. Does that make sense? That is one energetic imbalance that we want to be aware of. When there is the emotional energy stuck, right? So when we have this feeling of sadness inside and it's not being expressed in the right kind of way, then we may let it out only when we give ourselves the permission to. And oftentimes, especially if we don't want to feel these feelings and we just push them aside, we shove them away, we do not want to deal with them, we do not want to feel them, We then only allow ourselves to feel those feelings once we are in a certain emotional state where it's okay for us to feel this sadness and to feel this defeat. So that's why we oftentimes manufacture circumstances that bring us into the state of defeat, where we then have no choice but to feel the defeat that we've been going through and the sadness associated with that. So that is an example of a relief and release pattern. Now we also know what it's like to be in imbalance physically, right? Where we feel we are either physically constantly tired, that's something that people rather have, or they feel, man, I'm physically so charged I can't sit still. That's mostly in children, and people have a term for that, and I don't think that always applies. But we're talking about adults now, and so many of them are usually constantly tired, and that is usually a psychological factor of just not enjoying life very much and not seeing any purpose in it, and actually not wanting to do the things if you didn't have to do them. Right? That's usually this constant tiredness related to reinforcing thoughts of like unworthiness and negativity and self-doubt, where you're basically going through your life being constantly reminding of how much you hate yourself, which is not great. But for a lot of people, it is like that. They see somebody who is fat and they think that they are themselves fat and unworthy. They see somebody who's slim and beautiful and they feel fat and unworthy. It's like whatever you see, you always see yourself in the world, right? And so we want to make sure that we don't go through life with all of these factors constantly reinforcing our negative mindset. That is very important. And so, as I said, there is mental energy, there is emotional energy. And so for this mental energy, for that to be in balance, we need to have a healthy outlet for our thoughts. Otherwise, they're just turning onto themselves. And you see that, when people are in isolation or they don't have anything to engage their mind with, they start counting the tiles on the wall or something, just to, count from 1 to 1,000 and kind of repeatedly, because they just, as mental energy stuck that wants to be engaged, right? There's too much of it. It needs to be kind of let go, utilized in a certain way. In the same way as you can only lay in bed and rest for so long. At some point you're like, man, I gotta move a little bit, right? For most people it's rather the opposite. They go, and at some point they have to rest. It's the same thing. When the energy is totally depleted, at some point you need to recharge it, right? And so that happens with mental energy, where we feel that we are either mentally depleted or mentally charged. And so we want to find a way to let go of this mental energy in the right kind of way and put our thoughts into the right places, because we have only so much of that mental energy every day, right? And there's, as I said, also emotional energy, that we have certain kinds of emotions fluctuating through us, and whether that is going to be envy and grief and sadness, anger, that is going to be very unfortunate if we have these types of emotions running through us, roaming through us, circulating through us all the time, because it will create just more of the same. By us feeling like that repeatedly, we basically create more of the same emotions, because we train ourselves to do that, because the more we are in these emotions, the more we link the external perceptions that encounter our consciousness throughout the day. We encounter them from that inner state of that specific emotion. And so that whenever we take in this perception from the outside, once again, it triggers the same emotion, because it has been linked, because we've been going through our lives in these emotions so much. And so then at some point you meet your partner with these emotions, and that gets laid on top of your partner, and then at some point this state is going to be triggered. That's why it is so incredibly important for us to have some proper emotional hygiene. Meaning that we want to be very clear and careful and aware of how do we feel each day. And it's always a double-sided influence, meaning your emotions influence the thoughts and influence the actions. But actions and thoughts also influence emotions. And so we can feel differently by acting differently and by thinking differently. but we can also act and think differently when we start to feel differently. So these are all factors that come into play why we actually have these associations towards certain things, because we go through our lives and then there are inputs, sensory inputs, and when this sensation is getting evaluated, it becomes perception. When the sensation is being given meaning to, it becomes a perception. And these perceptions, we perceive them each and every day as we go through our lives. And what are the sets of evaluations that we put on the sensation, right? Because it oftentimes is a heuristic, meaning we tend to repeat the thoughts that we have thought of the past. We tend to repeat the evaluations that we have been repeating even in the past, because it just makes life more easier, more manageable, more easy for us to be focused on things. When we have heuristics of, yeah, okay, I know already what that means. That's exactly why children are in this open place of just being so malleable and so perceptive, because for them they still see it with fresh eyes, with children's eyes. They learn about things, right? And adults, on the other hand, are less seeing the world with these children's eyes, right? Because we know that, okay, I know that already. And yes, you know this already, and that makes sense. But we can also look at that and say, there's something else here that I can learn. There's something else here that I can see. And something else here that I can learn. Alright, so the core concept. You talk about decoding human behavior and addressing energetic imbalances. Can you explain what that means in practical terms, and how someone might recognize these imbalances in their own lives? Well, how do you recognize it? That's the question. Usually the answer to that is, are you fully happy and content with your life, or are you kind of not? And if you're kind of not, then likely there is an imbalance somewhere. You know, I realized that in the past, and still, that sometimes my voice just gets blocked. And usually I'm a very verbal person, if you haven't figured that yet, or rather yeah, anyway, so. And this voice being blocked had to do in the past with like a lot of emotional blockages, where I realized that I wasn't expressing myself because I realized that, yeah, I was just also too tired, right? And then realizing that I actually could have written down a lot of more things more clearly into my journals, into my phone, like I was doing that the entirety of last year and the entirety of the year before. For almost 2 years I'm journaling now, which is great, right? That I haven't done that before because I tend to get then too tired and too fatigued. And as I'm saying that, I actually realized that as I'm watching the Homosi videos currently, I'm also not taking notes anymore, because I'm just, yeah, exactly. And that's how we bring this together with everything that we said before, where I feel that if I did have a girlfriend, it would be much easier for me. But on the other hand, that can't just be the one and only solution. I got to find like a different way of meeting my social needs than just with a woman, right? But on the other hand, coffee chats, that would be great. So the core concept, the transformation. So what kinds of breakthroughs or transformations have participants experienced in your seminar? Can you share an example that really stands out to you? No, I can't. I haven't given any yet. The challenge. You've mentioned dealing with social energy imbalances and inner pressures in your own life. How have these challenges influenced your approach to teaching to others about balance and alignment? Exactly. Yeah, so as I said, even earlier on, even earlier on, man, this is good. Having ChatGPT give me out some questions here. Very grounding. It's like tapping, you know what I mean? Just scratching. Scratching the surface, tapping the forehead. All right. So you've mentioned dealing with social energy imbalances and inner pressure in your own life. How have these challenges influenced your approach to teaching others about balance and alignment? Well, that is basically the silver lining, the chief cornerstone of all of my work is that life is guiding us. I believe that life is guiding us towards the life of our dreams and towards healing and integration. Let me just text the guy that I'm about to meet with for the... Exactly. Yes. Same coffee shop. They should be open at that hour. All right, okay, so further forward we go. Where were we here? Drifting off the challenge. So you've mentioned dealing with social energy imbalances and inner pressures in your own life. How have these challenges influenced your approach to teaching others about balance and alignment? So yeah, I've realized in my own life early on that I was very much in imbalance. I just did not talk to people a lot. I didn't have a social circle and I didn't share anything about myself, how I was doing and how I was feeling emotionally. And I'm looking at myself right now and I can totally be an influencer. I can totally have a working YouTube channel and I can totally do live seminars. That's what I can do and that's what I will do. I'm just going to get over myself, just practicing and putting in the hours more and more and becoming that person, right? So yeah, as I said, even earlier on, I wasn't talking to a lot of people. I wasn't sharing about what I was going through back at the time. And so basically throughout all of this isolation, I just realized that now I gotta take action and just talk to more people. And that's what I'm just about to do, to have a coffee chat conversation with a good friend of mine while I'm gonna be going back and getting back to my clients. And talk to them and send them messages, making appointments happen for next week, because this is exactly what I'm doing. And I realize that with some more friendly encounters, I already have something to look forward to in 15 minutes that like motivates you. I'm gonna be with somebody, like a real person, face to face. This is amazing. I love that. Right? So that's what I want to be doing. And then also friendly coffee chats. Just have a date. Just go on some dates. Like, why is that wrong? Why is that wrong? It is not wrong, and so I will. And so yeah, it is not wrong, and so I will. So it's all good. Starting to look alright. So just let this grow out a bit more. And it's gotta be alright. Exactly. So how have these challenges influenced your approach to teaching others about balance and alignment? Well, we have to find a way to be in balance in our lives because, as I said, life is guiding us. Life is guiding us towards the life of our dreams. Life is also guiding us towards certain healing processes. So if you go through life and you see something that's triggering you, it very likely invokes the memories of that inside of you, right? So when you feel yourself being pulled towards situations over and over again, like you feel you've been cheated on or there's something else getting in the way, then these repeat behaviors that we do, right? Being left, feeling abandoned, as I said, being cheated on, or I had that in the past as well, where I was always feeling like people were talking over me. but because I lost my presence while I was talking, so people thought I was just mumbling. And so people probably thought that I was sounding like very depressed at that point, so they were just talking over me. Although I was just saying something, I was like not saying anything, I was just getting fucking angry at myself and at them. In this passive aggressive fucking pussy shit. Instead of confronting it, right? Directly. And so I was just hating them and hating myself, just bottling this up inside like an immature fucking loser. And so that's now over. And so yeah. So it is important that we approach that in the right way and that we make sure that we have a way to do that properly. A lot of people are watching the stories. That's great. And we got 444. Alright, so let's publish that here also. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Alright, then go some music. Savior. Alright, yeah. Paul Cardall, that's all good. Alright, here, you're gonna get a copyright here thingy, probably, most likely. Some copyright kind of thing. Okay, it's $8. I miscalculated that. Sending the messages. Alright, got it. Yeah, so 446, let's finish that with the last question here, ChatGPT, the vision. So what's your ultimate vision for the soul-searching experience? Where do you see the seminar going in the future? And how do you hope it will impact people on a global scale? That is a good question. I don't even think about that yet, because frankly, first of all, I've just gotta get the first people and run the first seminars for a decade in a small setting, and then we'll talk about changing the world, because it will not be that instant. It's going to be take 10 or 20 or even 30 years to grow all of that, if it even goes to the global stage. So we will see. But that's certainly what I want to create, what I want to manifest here. A live seminar experience called the Soul Searching Experience, where we're looking at energetic imbalances, where basically people are encouraged. So if you are watching this, if you are one of those people who says, okay, I really want to change, and I want to experience what it is like of life guiding me, what the experience of being guided by life is like and feels like, it sounds like, then come to the soul searching experience. I'm gonna now go to the coffee chat with a good friend of mine, and then we continue.